Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and it's that time again where we break down some meta predictions and meta forecasts for the upcoming Orlando Regionals, which is quite literally on Saturday. So it's like a couple days away, and I thought I would do my little annually thing here. I take a look at some of my predictions for what will be popular in Orlando. Orlando will be wild, of course. Crown Zenith is legal for Orlando, which is a very big deal. That means cards like Skyseal Stone, Zamazenta, Radiant Eternatus are all going to be legal. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see some really creative decks pop up, and I'm hopeful for that. But we'll start things off here with the main dog. The BDIF, the deck to beat, will still be Lugia, even though I actually think Lugia doesn't get, like, worse, but I think that other decks below it actually get a lot better, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I definitely think Lugia is still the BDIF. Obviously, Lugia has adapted quite a bit. Most lists now are using Canceling Cologne in their list alongside either Skyla or Irida. This list here doesn't have the Canceling Cologne that I snagged off of the late night, but most Lugia lists do play Canceling Cologne, so it is something you do have to consider. This does hurt if you're trying to play something with Aerodactyl or Galarian Weezing in it, and I do think that it is a very big deal. Obviously, it also helps Lugia's matchup against Duraludon quite a bit. The Duraludon matchup gets a lot easier when they have that extra Cologne, so not only can they insta-KO a Duraludon with Yveltal, but they also have the Cologne to maybe get through a Duraludon. So definitely going to be a very big deal there. Lugia is definitely evolving, but this does mean that Lugia is maybe susceptible to, like, control now. Obviously, no one plays Espeon VMAX in Lugia anymore, and even Birdkeeper is starting to be cut. I know this list here, there is a Birdkeeper, but I do think that Lugia is kind of going more towards like a counter the walls to Lugia, more or less counter the disruption for Lugia. And that could be big for decks using Yveltal or Paralysis. I think that Lugia definitely kind of shifting more towards like a Canceling Clone build will hurt Lugia's matchups against stuff that try to control it with Paralysis or Yveltal. But Lugia maybe still insane. Didn't really gain anything with the new set, but what did gain a lot is Lost Box, and Lost Box here is looking pretty darn good. I think everyone can agree that Rayquaza is the best way to play the Lost Box deck right now. And, I mean, I agree. I'm not a fan of Rayquaza. Personally, I don't really like the deck that much. I think that it's very, it's not hard to play, but it's very annoying that you have to, like, constantly keep track of your energy. That's one of, like, the big turnoffs I have of wanting to play Ray myself, is that it's very hard to keep track of everything, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't like having to keep track of my energy constantly. I know you have to do that a lot of the time in Lost Box anyways, but Lost Box Ray is a little bit more one-sided. I feel like it also still kind of gets bodied by cards like Judge and Marnie, but Ray is still extremely powerful. I think Amazing Rare Raikou is arguably the best, like, attacker in the deck that isn't Rayquaza. Raikou is just insane. The amount of times you'll win a game because Raikou is ridiculous. And Raikou is a very good card in Rayquaza. And I think a lot of people are going to default to Ray. Like, if anyone's going to bring a Lost Zone deck to Orlando, the odds that it's going to be Rayquaza over, you know, the Kyogre build are very high, because Rayquaza is a little bit more of an easier deck to play. It's not as hard to play, and it's also a lot more, it's simplistic. And it also, everybody likes how Rayquaza just goes boom. The big thing with Ray, obviously, is it does help a lot against Duraludon, and it really does help against Goodra, which is a deck that we'll talk about soon. So Rayquaza definitely is still really good. Personally, I wouldn't play it. If I were to play a Lost Zone deck, I don't think I would personally play Rayquaza. I know a lot of people out there do like playing Ray, and it's definitely a very strong deck in the meta. And a lot of people would argue it is the best way to play it. But the best way to play Lost Box, in my opinion, is the Kyogre build. I think Kyogre is probably the best way to play it because it rewards the good players. Like, I think that you have to be, like, really, like, on your A game when piloting Kyogre. And that's, I mean, the thing with Ray is not as hard to play as Kyogre. Ray is a little bit more easier. All you really have to do is just keep track of your energies and your prizes. And Kyogre, you have to really do a lot. You have to be very mindful of what you throw in the Lost Zone. But Kyogre did get some new tools. There is some hope, potentially, for playing Zamazenta and Raikou. As you can see this list here, there is a Zamazenta in the list. And there's also a reason to play Skyseal Stone in the Kyogre deck. You can use it with Raikou V, or you could play it alongside the Dragonite. Obviously, Dragonite doesn't get to use Choice Belt if you play Skyseal Stone, but you can always, like, maybe bench, like, a Raikou and then a Dragonite. But Dragonite with Skyseal Stone could be good if you get, like, you know, the Goon Ping, or you set up damage with Cram or Sableye. It's not that bad. I really like the Kyogre deck. It's my favorite way to play Lost Box. I've been toying with Kyogre for quite a while now. Myself personally, I really enjoy the deck. Kyogre, like, the more you practice with the deck, like, the more you practice with Kyogre, the easier it is to actually pull off those Aqua Storms. But yeah, Kyogre, in my opinion, is the best way to play Lost Box. It's actually the one that I think also has the better matchup spread overall. Over the Raikou build. It's not as, like, it doesn't get bodied as hard by, like, Marnie. I think Zeraora is a really good card in the deck, as it allows you to have, like, this passive attacker. But yeah, Kyogre definitely will be good. And I think it'll perform well by a good player. Like, I think a really top-tier player is going to do well because Kyogre is just that good. And I think just Skysteel Stone in general, like, will make Lost Box decks even more insane. That's another big thing about it, is Lost Box will be more insane with Skysteel Stone. But of course, we can't count out Goodra. There's a lot of hype right now for Goodra in the format, as Goodra did get second at Liverpool, and it's also something a little bit different. It's even been doing decent in online tournaments, getting top 8 in the late night, winning the Tournament of Doom. Like, the deck's been really on a roll recently, and it's been getting a lot of attention. Goodra does have shaky matchups. I think that it doesn't have a good Mew matchup, though. You could argue that you could maybe just either play 2 Drapion or play Drapion Skysteel Stone to fix the Mew matchup. I don't think it has the best Ray matchup. I think it does have an okay Kyogre matchup. And it definitely has an okay Lugia matchup too. But a lot of its matchups are kind of awkward. I'm not sure it even beats Duraludon, because Duraludon shreds you. So, and also Goodra Mirrors. I do not want to play a Goodra Mirror. That does not sound like a good time at all. But yeah, Goodra will be popular in my opinion. Will it be the most popular way to play Lost Box? No, but it will be popular. In my opinion, it will be in the meta share. So definitely consider Goodra for Orlando. I think whatever you're looking to play to Orlando, I think you need to have some kind of strategy and game plan into Goodra, or at least have a way to beat Goodra, or maybe your deck can beat Goodra regardless. I think you have to beat Goodra. Like, I don't think it's even going to do that well. I actually don't think Goodra, I think Goodra is going to kind of, not flop, but I don't think we're going to see a single Goodra in top 8, but I do think it's still going to be played heavily, and that's a big deal. Like, Goodra, it was played very heavily at my locals this past week, and yeah, like, I'm preparing for the Goodra matchup at Orlando. It's one of the matchups that I'm expecting. Next up is obviously a Mew. Mew's just as good as ever. Mew's still kind of insane. I do think that Mew with Skysteel Stone being a threat is definitely a big deal. Drapion Skysteel Stone is a big threat. But this path build of Mew is still very deadly. It's still very scary to play against Path Mew, in my opinion. It's still a really good deck, and I think that Mew is still going to be a great deck. I think it's also going to be very popular. It's a very easy deck to pick up and play, so expect to see a lot of Mew. And honestly, if you're playing a deck to Orlando that doesn't have the greatest Mew matchup, you're not going to have a good time, because Mew, I think, will not only be in the top tables, but the bottom tables, because it's a very easy deck to pick up. There's a League Battle deck. A lot of die-hard Mew players are out there who will always play this deck, so expect to see a lot of Mew in Orlando. I do think that the Meloetta build has been phased out, actually. I think that the Double Turbo build is kind of back in style now, so expect to see a lot of Mew in Orlando. I definitely think that Mew will be extremely popular. Next up, we have Regis. Regis is weird. I really think Regis is a good deck. It beats a lot of decks. Like, I think it actually beats most decks in the format, even Lugia with Manaphy Dunsparce, and even then, you're going to probably have the odd Lugia player who doesn't play the Manaphy Dunsparce. Maybe they'll play the Manaphy, but they won't play the Dunsparce. Because Lugia, because it's starting to tech itself out more now with, like, the Clones and the Irida, the Skyless, some lists still opt to have Birdkeeper. Some Lugia decks might not even play Dunsparce or Manaphy, and that's a huge deal if you're going to play Regis. And my only thing that turns me off from playing Regis is I think the deck's insane, and I genuinely have it in my list of decks I personally might bring myself. It's in my top 3 decks I want to play to Orlando. The problem is, I don't like that Goodra matchup, and I don't know if Yellhorn fixes the Goodra matchup, in my opinion. Yellhorn's good against Goodra, but I don't know if Yellhorn makes the Goodra matchup super winnable. It really depends if you play against Goodra with Big Parasol. There are a lot of Goodra lists out there that don't play it. I think the list we just looked at, which was Azul's list he used to get like top 8 in the late night the other night, he didn't play Parasol in the deck. So some Goodra decks will cut the Parasol, and that will give you a better matchup because then you have Regice. But Goodra with like double Parasol is really hard to beat because your game plan is thwarted because you can't use Regice. And the Yellhorn, I don't know if it's enough. Goodra does have heavy switch counts. I mean, Goodra will play Switch and Escape Rope, which can counter the Yellhorn pretty hard. So I'm not sold on the Goodra matchup quite yet. I think that it still has a pretty bad Goodra matchup, but if the Goodra deck doesn't play Parasol, the matchup's pretty free. But if they do play Parasol, then it's really difficult, and you have to really sweat it out. But Regis is just an insane deck, and I am very much considering it. I really think Regis is a solid pick. It just really depends. Also, Regis is prone to like having really bad draws, which is another turnoff I have with the deck. Next up is Duraludon. Arctura is another deck that I don't think will be popular, but I think will be something you still have to expect to see, mainly because it's a very easy deck to pilot. A lot of people just assume that it has like an auto win against Lugia. It really doesn't beat Lugia, in my opinion, but it's still a decent deck nonetheless. I think it has a good Goodra matchup. Um, I don't think it can beat Ray though. So like it has like kind of iffy matchups, but has good matchups too at the same time. I don't know if it even beats Mew. That's another bad matchup. Is Mew is a tough one. So I don't know. Like Duraludon's in a weird spot. Is it my personal pick? No, I'm not gonna play Duraludon, but I do think that there will be people who will play Duraludon, and we even might see Grant Shen get top 8 again with Duraludon because that seems to be his main deck right now. Next up is Eternatus, another sleeper deck that I think actually kind of flies under the radar. I'm actually kind of on the Etern wave right now. I really do like Etern quite a bit. Obviously, I think that it has a pretty bad Reggie matchup, but I think it beats like everything else. I actually think that it can beat Goodra thanks to Escape Rope. I think that it has a really good Mew matchup. With the Drapion, the Mew matchup becomes pretty free. I don't know, like it just has really good matchups all across the board, in my opinion. I think that Weezing is so good right now against Lost Box, and considering Lost Box genuinely is going to be extremely popular. I don't think it'll be more popular than Lugia, but I think it will be popular nonetheless. I actually think that boasts well into wanting to play Eternatus to Orlando. So definitely keep your eye on this deck. I think that Eternatus is definitely something to consider. I don't know if you're going to hit it. Like, I don't think it's going to be that popular, but I do think it is something you still have to consider. Like, if you're playing Lost Box, be ready for the Weezing. The only thing that kind of turns me off of Etern at the moment, a lot of Lost Box decks are now playing 4 Escape Rope, meaning that if you're not able to get, like, double Weezing, it can be very easy for the opponent to, like, rope you and stuff, so it's definitely very, very scary. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about Radiant Eternatus. Now, there's a couple ways you can play it. I wanted to kind of default to the Duraludon build here. It's kind of the way a lot of people are really hyping it up. Etern Duraludon, I don't know if I'm sold on it. Honestly, it hasn't even performed that well in online tournaments, which is maybe a sign that it'll flop. But I will say this. I think we're going to see a really cool Radiant Eternatus deck do decent by a player who likes to play wacky off decks. I actually think we're going to see like a wacky, maybe a never-before-seen Radiant Etern deck do pretty okay. I don't know if it'll get top 8, but I think we're going to see somebody bring a really cool Etern deck that a lot of people are going to hype up on Twitter. I'm going to put that out there right now. And I don't know if it'll be on stream, but I do think we're going to see a really cool Radiant Etern deck. Now, will Radiant Etern Duraludon do well? Honestly, I don't know if it will. I don't know how good the deck really is. It might flop, but there will be people that will play it and do want to make it work. And, I mean, the deck is okay, but we'll have to see how Radiant Etern ends up performing. Next up is Arc decks. I kind of want to just group it all together. I mean, yeah, we had Arcdura, but the Arcdura is not the same as like an Arceus with like a VVMAX that isn't Duraludon. I'm kind of looking at the top 8 list here from San Diego. Arceus Binder Drop or just Arceus Pikachu might make a comeback. Flying Pikachu is pretty good right now. It has a pretty good time against Lost Box and Regis. Lost Box does play 4 Escape Rope, and I think that Amazing Rare Raikou is also a pretty big deal for Lost Box. So I do think that Flying Pikachu is definitely susceptible to like losing to Lost Box decks who just kind of just smoke you. But I really do like that I really like Lost Box right now. I think Lost Box, I think Arceus right now is really, really good. Kind of an underrated deck in my opinion. The one thing that turns me off of Arceus though altogether is that it has a weird Lugia matchup. I'm not sold on the Lugia matchup just yet, mainly because going second into Lugia, if you're not playing Path of the Peak, Arceus just kind of gets smoked by Lugia. I think that if you're going to play an Arceus deck that isn't Duraludon, I do think you probably have to play a 1/1 Aerodactyl in your deck, and a Pikachu, but I don't know. I do like the idea of Arceus in Orlando. I think we might see an Arceus comeback, because I think Arceus is good. You just have to maybe figure out a better way to beat Goodra, and I think Arceus could actually be a pretty solid play for Orlando. I think we're going to see at least one Arceus deck do well. Next up is Vigavolt, another deck that I think gets a little bit better, actually. I think the reason why Vigavolt gets better is that Lost Box gets more popular, so you have a better reason to play Item Lock, but I also think that Skyseal Stone is one of the best cards Vigavolt gains. Now, Skyseal Stone and Vigavolt is cracked in my opinion, because you can use it with Drapion, you can use it with Raikou, or you can just play with Vigavolt. You can go like Paralyzing Bolt into a Super Zap Cannon, 2-shot on a VMAX or V-Star with that Skyseal Stone for some pretty insane plays. And I actually really like Vigavolt. Is it the best deck? I don't know. It does have weird matchups across the board, but it does do really well into Lost Box, and I think can actually beat Lugia too, and I think that has a really good Mew matchup. I think the Mew matchup is like almost not unlosable, but the Mew matchup is really good now because of the Skyseal Stone being added into the deck. So yeah, I think Vigavolt is a pretty good deck for Orlando. Will it be popular? Probably not, because a lot of people don't really respect it or hype it up that much, even though it literally just won a regionals and got second at another one. So we'll have to see, but definitely expect to see Vigavolt perform well. I think we might see Vigavolt at least one in top 16. I think Skyseal Stone really helps Vigavolt a lot. Next, I want to talk about Giratina. I got two kind of slept-on decks coming up next. Giratina is sort of on the cusp of a comeback. It still has to figure out that awkward Lugia matchup, but I don't know, man. Giratina doesn't seem bad right now in the format. This is a list I snagged here that happens to play a research, so I don't know if I agree with that. I definitely think you should play either Roxanne or something, but whatever. This is not my list. But yeah, no, Giratina could be on the cusp of a comeback in the meta. I think Giratina actually has a decent matchup against Goodra, because you have the insta-KO and you have Escape Rope Boss, which is kind of cool. So I really do like Giratina. I think that is not a bad deck, and I don't know, we might see a Giratina deck do get like a top 16. I think Giratina could be on the cusp of making a comeback. I still don't think it's a bad deck. It just has that really awkward like Lost Box matchup, but who knows? I could see Giratina making a comeback, in all honesty. I don't hate it. And then next up is Palkia, another deck that I think is flying under the radar right now. Palkia gets a little bit better because of Articuno being a little bit stronger now versus Lugia. Palkia also has a really good win condition with the Ice Cube Wash Energy combo. Like, Lost Box decks are not playing Temple of Sinnoh or, like, Fan of Waves or something silly. Like, a lot of the time, they're not going to be able to beat that Ice Cube, and it kind of gives you an easy win con against something like Reggie's or against, it gives you an easy win con against Reggie's and gives you an easy win con against, Lost Box, and that's a pretty big deal for wanting to play the Palkia deck. So yeah, Palkia might fly under the radar again. Doesn't seem like a bad pick for Orlando. The Ice Cube's really good, especially with people really on the Lost Box train, and I think Articuno might be popular thanks to the fact that Lugia doesn't really respect the Articuno. I mean, that one Bird Keeper is all they have, and that's not going to save them a lot of the time. Like, one Bird Keeper isn't always enough to stop that Articuno Paralyze Lock strategy, so I definitely think we could see Palkia make a comeback. Who knows? Maybe Palkia gets top 8. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Palkia got top 8, because I actually think this could be a good tournament for Palkia. It's kind of geared up pretty well thanks to the Ice Cube and the Articuno. You have the Drapion. You could even play Skyseal Stone in the deck to make the Mew matchup even more winnable. You know what I mean? You can go like Skyseal Drapion, or like you can Palkia knock out a Genesect and then Skyseal Drapion Mew for game. It's not hard to do that when you have access to shady dealings to find yourself, that Skyseal Stone. I think that Inteleon with Skyseal Stone is kind of an underrated duo. So I don't know. I just wanted to point that out there. But yeah, definitely think Palkia might make a top 8 run. I think we are going to see Palkia do okay, because I think Palkia is on the cusp of a comeback. But that is it for my meta predictions for Orlando. I will be in attendance at Orlando, and I cannot wait. I am kind of bent on 3 decks right now for Orlando that I'm going to be hopefully making work, and one of those decks I'm going to pick and play. I'm excited for Orlando Regionals. Definitely going to be a wild tournament with Crown Zenith being legal. Again, some predictions I got. I think somebody is going to make a really cool Radiant E-Turn deck that is going to be really cool to see. And then, of course, we're probably going to see Skyseal Stone deck do really well. If I had to make a bet on what will win the tournament, I actually think that a Lost Zone archetype will win the tournament. I just think Lost Zone is primed to do really well right now because of Skyseal Stone and all the different variations people are playing. May even just see like a more like streamlined Zamazenta build of Lost Box do well too. Kind of forgot to mention that, but that'll be it for me. Hope y'all enjoyed. If any of y'all are going to Orlando, hopefully I can meet some of y'all. I cannot wait. I am super excited to go to Orlando. It's going to be a blast. Cannot wait to see everybody again and play some Pokemon. And I'm excited. So thanks for watching, and I will catch y'all later. If you haven't subbed to the second channel yet, click the subscribe button down below and all that good stuff. And I'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.